So we have a short keynote presentation now from Senator Alice Mary Higgins on the Sustainable Development Goals from local to global. Before becoming an independent senator, Alice Mary worked as the coordinator for COLA Anti-Racism Project, and has also worked as at the National Women's Council for Ireland, the Older and Bolder, Ireland Action Aid for Ireland, and Trócaire, where she campaigned on climate change, food security, and peace building. Senator Higgins has been advocating widely for adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals and is an active member of the International Parliamentarian Assembly for the implementation of the goals. So Alice Mary, you have 10 minutes, and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. And it's really good to see this happening, and it's brilliant to see so many councillors from all different parts of Ireland being excited about what the goals can mean for them. Because in the end, for the Sustainable Development Goals to be meaningful, they have to happen in real places. They have to change how things happen in real places. And something that I've always said when people talk to me about policy, and they think that policy and politics are a thing that are far away and removed, is that policy in the end is just a set of decisions we make about how we live together in real places. Be those places the community, be they cities, be they our country, Europe, or the world. It is in the end a set of ideas about what does living together in a good way mean. And the Sustainable Development Goals are one of the moments of great global vision in terms of how we could and should live together in a way that's sustainable, in a way that's more equal, in a way that works for everybody. And you know, while they might seem abstract in a sense, because when you dive down into these goals, the 17 of them, they really relate to the lived experience of life. But they also allow a conversation about about what it is to live together that is global. So it's a conversation that can be had at any level, involving these same key reference points, the same key indicators. And it is worth acknowledging what an incredible thing it was. Everybody knows how difficult it is to get even 10 people in a room to agree on something. But to have 193 countries agree on a vision for what development should look like, what it is to live sustainably with each other. And it came at a moment in the same year as the Paris climate talks, where we had the Paris Climate Agreement, when there were some really key moments of vision for how do we connect together, a recognition of interdependence. And then in the years following that, we've had some fragmentation in terms of multilateralism. We've seen some countries trying to pull away from that kind of multilateral doing things together. And then along comes COVID. And it's another reminder, very much what climate activists have been telling us for years, is that we are interdependent. We live on an actual real planet, a real place, and the people around us matter. We depend on them. And I think it's been a real reminder to people of that point of interdependence, and indeed the need for intergenerational solidarity, as was spoken about. So for what they mean and what's different about the Sustainable Development Goals is that they are universal. They apply everywhere. I've talked about that. The other thing that's really important is these are not a kind of inspirational or aspirational list. I often say about how, even though they're very colorful and they're very beautiful, and I've like a pile of jewelry based on them now, they basically are not simply there as a Pinterest board for us to pick something that's colorful and nice and use it in our branding. They are an actual framework. They have real targets. And for some people who kind of see the goal, and it seems, I would encourage everybody to dive into the targets. And you may find targets that don't seem relevant to you because they are targets that maybe Ireland has already achieved but needs to hang on to. But there's other ones. I was even just glancing, road traffic deaths, you know, the diversity of local plant life, the role of culture in tourism. All of those targets that are buried underneath these goals are ones that can have a real meaning in a variety of different places. So just to give examples of what we've done in a national level, for me, on a national level, working with I lead the Civil Engagement Group. It's a group of senators who all come from civil society background. When we put forward our community participation bill, which was around disability access to buses, was around disability-friendly playgrounds. We were talking about Sustainable Development Goal number 11, which was around inclusive participation, the idea of sustainable cities and communities where everyone could participate. When we debated menstrual health and access to menstrual health, we were talking about goal number 5 on women's rights and goal number 6 on sanitation. When I debate the finance bill and I question some of the choices on taxation, I'm reminding them that the Sustainable Development Goals say that tax changes should actually benefit those on lower incomes. So that's how real it can be in the course of an actual debate in terms of when you're actually translating it. And it's really important in terms of challenging policy and looking at policy. And I've been pushing to kind of hold national government to really think about how these things work. But as well as being a tool like that around issues you want to raise and champion, it also allows a conversation that is international. And that international conversation is something that can start from anywhere. So for me, being in the Parliamentarians for the Goals, it means that if I'm talking to parliamentarians from Ghana, from Uganda, from Costa Rica, from Denmark, and we talk about life underwater, or we talk about that idea of sustainable cities, or we talk about, gender equality, we're using a common language. We know what each other is talking about. We're able to help each other and exchange ideas, and we're able to hold each other to account. And this is something I've often used, the analogy of the human rights, that moment after the horrors of World War II, when the whole world agreed on the Human Rights Charter. And the Human Rights Charter being agreed as that vision for how it is acceptable to treat each other. What are the basic dignities and rights that every person should have? It didn't all get fixed immediately. It didn't all come into being just because we signed the Human Rights Charter. But what it did is it set a common standard, and it allowed countries to hold themselves to each other to account. And even when countries were disregarding human rights, it gave a power to each individual citizen in the world to say, there are rights that are widely recognized that belong to me in terms of what is acceptable. And similarly, this is a vision that belongs to everyone. The key responsibility is on national governments, but the impetus, the drive, the mandate can be pushed from everybody. And there are places in the world where cities, councils, community areas are leading the SDGs even when national governments aren't. We've seen that in Brazil, for example. We have Brazilian cities that are pushing ahead on the SDGs even when Bolsonaro, for example, isn't a fan. And we've seen that on climate too, where in many places there are communities that are leading on climate, and they are ahead of the curve. I know I'm coming into my last minute, so they are ahead of the curve in terms of what it is. And what I would encourage all of you is, when you're thinking about how you use these goals, look to partnerships, as Michael said. Look to partners that are in unexpected places. It's a chance for you to work with universities, with civil society, with technical institutes. And it's also for a chance for you to draw relationships with other councillors, national parliamentarians, and international parliamentarians. And you may find ideas that are working somewhere else, and you can take those ideas and champion them here in Ireland. But also, some of you will come up with insightful, brilliant ideas about how to make the SDGs a reality. And I know, and you can take those ideas, you have a chance to multiply their impact. So if you do something brilliant as a pilot in Carlow, in Galway, in Tipperary, you can actually take that idea and share it with other councils around the world. So it's a real chance for that exchange of ideas. And I know that each of you, that my final comment, has lots of different passions. People come into politics because they care about children's rights, or they care about local business, or they care about the environment. There's lots of individual passions. I would say you don't have to take it on. Somebody said in our last session that it seemed like a lot. You don't have to take it all on. The point is that there's lots of ways in. Whatever expertise or insight you have on a particular topic, you can lay it alongside the others who are working in the other sustainable development goals. And it means, rather than a competition between which of these 5 or 6 issues is more important, You have a collaboration where each issue is part of a collective vision forward, and it allows you to build that sense of alliance, because the big thing is the social, the economic, the cultural, the environmental, they all come together. They come together in every person's lives, in every community, in Ireland as a whole, in Europe, and in things. And I'm going to leave it there now. It is a framework. Make hard targets. Hold the government to hard targets. Hold Europe to hard targets, because the SDGs get put in a lot of documents. And in your own local plans, make sure it's not simply the officials, even though they may be wonderful, putting the SDGs in there, but that you give your ideas about what the SDGs mean for your local place. Thank you.